Hey everyone, welcome to Reflections, the wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We're coming to you courtesy of moretalk.tv. My guest today on the show is Josie Varga. Josie is a relentless advocate and popular motivational speaker for teaching others to overcome life's many challenges. Despite being born with cerebral palsy, she prefers to live her life focusing on the positive, knowing that it's not what happens to you that matters, but how you choose to respond. She is also a best-selling author. Her latest book, Divine Visits, highlights true angelic and divine encounters from around the world, including her own. She is also the author of Visits to Heaven, Visits from Heaven, Make Up Your Mind to Be Happy, and Footprints in the Sand, a disabled woman's inspiring journey to happiness. Besides being a former communications consultant, she also served as the director of communications and editor for a trade association and holds 2 patents. She is mentoring an online e-group through the ARE entitled Rediscovering Happiness, Train Your Mind to Think Positive. And this runs from March 25th through April 21st of next year, 2015. And you can register at edgarcayce.org/egroups. Josie, thank you so much for joining us today on Reflections.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Brent. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And if you can let our listeners know first off, how'd you first get involved with the ARE?
Oh boy, that's you got 2 hours? um Actually, I had never heard of ALE before. And what happened was when I was working on my book Visits from Heaven, I needed permission to reprint a story in the book. So they told me to contact Cassie McCraig. And I contacted her, and the rest is history. I mean, we really hit it off. I told her about the book, and she said, "But wait a minute, can you send us the book? We're interested in it." And that was my first book with ARE, Visits from Heaven. I really think that I was led to ARE. In fact, I've been told that many times, and I truly believe that. And I love the people there. I really do. I've grown to love ARE and so many of the people that work there. You guys are like family to me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I love this book, Visits from Heaven. If you don't mind, if we can talk about that a little bit, you can let our listeners know what was the process of writing that book and how did it come about?
Uh, well, it's not a topic that I'd ever thought I'd write about. What happened was I had a dream about my husband's friend, Rich, who passed away in the World Trade Center attacks of 9/11. I had never met Rich. I never met his family. I never met anyone. But yet I had this vivid dream, Brent. And in the dream, I'm walking down this hallway, and I come to this door, and I walk into this room, and there are desks and windows everywhere. And I look up, and I see Rich. And he looks at me and he says, "Josie, thank you for mentioning me in your book." Now, what he meant by that, I mentioned him in my first book, Footprints in the Sand. Okay. So for some reason, Brent, I look at him and I say, "Well, Rich, you have to prove to me that this is really you." Why I said that, I don't know. Okay. But with that, he picked up a phone on the desk and he opened it up, and there was a picture of him, his wife, and his son. And he shows me the picture and he says, "Josie, Boston is okay." Now, when I say he said it, it was mind to mind communication. There were no words. So he said, "Boston is okay." And I didn't know what that meant, but I understood that this was a message that I needed to get to his wife. Okay. Next thing I know, I'm kind of like on the street. And I see him in what looked like the bed of a pickup truck, standing behind his wife and son. And he looks at me and he says, "Okay, Josie, give them the message," and pushes me forward. And when he did that, I woke up in a sitting position, panting and out of breath. Was I scared? Oh yeah, I was scared. I didn't know what happened, but I knew that what I experienced was real. So I contacted my husband and I told him, I said, "You have to tell Rich's wife that Boston is okay." And what do you think he said? He said, "You're crazy. I'm not doing that. You want me to contact his wife and tell her Boston is okay? This is insane, et cetera, et cetera." But we compromised, and what I did is I sent John an email about the dream, and John forwarded the email to Rich's sister-in-law, Rich's wife's sister, okay? And what happened, to make a very long story short, we got a text message. I mean, no, not a text message, an email a while later, 2 weeks later, and her sister-in-law said that Karen, his wife, was considering selling her home and moving to Boston, but she felt guilty because they had purchased the house right before her husband died. So I hear this, Brent, and I'm like, oh my God. At first it didn't register, and then my husband read the email again, and we were like, oh my God. So that's why he said Boston is okay. He was telling his wife, it's okay, you can sell the house, you can move to Boston. I remember, I never met his wife, I never met his family, I never met anyone. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know she even had a brother in Boston, okay? So it wasn't like that happened and I said, okay, Josie Varga is going to write a book. No, it scared me at first, and but I but when you have an experience like this, it changes you to the core. It's
Yeah.
it's like an epiphany. And what happened was I was talking to my sister-in-law about it, and she said to me, Josie, don't you realize that you've been given a gift? And it kind of hit me then, like, oh my God, she's right. I have been given a gift. So I started to research the phenomenon, and I realized that I wasn't alone. And that's how Visits from Heaven came into being. The book is filled with stories from around the world, and every single story is backed up by proof. So I'm very proud of that book. And,
That's
as
wonderful.
they say, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And before we go too much further, I want to get into kind of your background. You have a very, very wonderful life story, facing and overcoming adversity. And can you tell us a little bit about, people always often ask you, how did you get from there to here? And what do they mean by that when they ask you that?
What they mean by that is I was born with cerebral palsy, and because of that, I suffer from bilateral hearing loss. I was also diagnosed with melanoma. So there are a lot of things that happened in my past. So people who truly know me look at me and say, how did you get from there to here? I mean, for instance, I decided to go to school for journalism. And a lot of people said, well, you're going to school for journalism? What do you mean? I mean, you can't hear. How are you going to be a journalist? But I didn't care. I went to college. I got my degree. I come out of college, once, and I'm all gun ho. I can't wait to get out there in the real world. And I go for one of my first job interviews. It was an advertising agency. And the woman who was interviewing me looked at me and said, Josie, get out of the field. You're never going to make it. Now, can you imagine? This was one of my first job interviews. I was absolutely crushed. And, that was a turning point for me. I realized I needed to fight to get what I wanted in life. And I needed to change my way of thinking because I call her Kate. Her name's not really Kate, but I call her Kate. And people say to me, boy, if you had the opportunity to meet Kate today, what would you say to her? You would say to her, oh, I show you and all that. But no, I think I would probably thank her because she really made me stronger. She made me fight. If
Right.
I could change anything about my life, would I change the fact that I have a disability? Would I change the skin cancer? Would I change all those things? No, I wouldn't change anything because all those things made me who I am today. They made me the strong person that I am today. And I'm grateful for that.
Right. Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And you often speak about what you call the I'll be happy when scenario and why happiness is, in fact, a state of mind. And can you explain that a little bit?
Uh-huh. People say things like, I'll be happy when I have a bigger house. Uh, I'll be happy when, I get a better job, or I'll be happy when I find, I'm in a relationship and I get married. But then what happens when you lose your job? What happens when you get married and you get divorced? what happens if you never find that house? Okay? People place all these stipulations on happiness, but in reality, there are no stipulations in happiness. It's all a matter of how we think. We have to be happy with the here and now. Edgar Cayce said, "Mind is indeed the builder," and that is so true. Our thoughts literally create our reality. People say we are what we think. I mean, we are what we eat, right? But what about thinking? We are
Hmm.
how we think. Our thoughts literally manifest into reality. So the more we say, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy when I get a better job, I'll be happy when I get married, or whatever the case may be, the further distance we place between ourselves and happiness.
Right.
Like one of the biggest
Yeah.
paradoxes of all time is how they say, you chase after happiness. People say, well, you have to chase after happiness. No, the more you chase after happiness, friend, the further you are from it.
Right.
So that's what I mean by, the I'll be happy when scenario.
Yeah, I love that. And you raised a really great point in the whole when people say you are what you eat. This has been something that I've always thought on a lot. And if you
Uh
think
huh.
about it, you only eat typically 2 to 3 meals a day. And but if you think about how many thoughts you have per day, it's blatantly clear which is the more important thing, what you eat or what you think. I think what you think. If you're thinking hundreds, if not thousands, of thoughts a day,
Uh huh.
that's hands down the most important thing to pay attention to.
I actually know how many thoughts we have a day. Research tells us that we have 70,000 thoughts per day.
Wow.
70,000. Okay. Now, I'm horrible at math, but I think that equates to about 48 or 50 thoughts per minute. So
Right.
think about that. Think about that. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty incredible. And some of
Yeah.
these thoughts are, of course, on a conscious level, but most of them are on a subconscious level.
Right.
That's
Yeah. I think
why
few people.
it's go ahead.
Yeah, I think few people really pay attention to that and realize that they're like we're all transmitters and we're transmitting, kind of giving off a signal, and
Hmm.
that's why we can pick up on that, especially when you refer to the subconscious thoughts. We really feel that on a subconscious level when we're with people.
Absolutely. And you know what?
Yeah.
That's why it's so important to practice mindfulness. Okay?
Right.
When you practice mindfulness, you are present in the moment and you accept it for what it is. And it's so
Right.
hard to do that. It's so hard to do that because we have all that mind shadow going on. We have all these thoughts going through our head. So it's hard to quiet the mind, but that's exactly what we need to do. And people always say to me, "Oh yeah, well, how do you do that?" Well, for
Right.
me, I have a simple technique that I call breathe and feel. And it's a simple meditation technique. And what I do is really, I'm running from one thing to the other day to day. And the only time I really get to relax is right before bed, So I lay down and I start to focus on my breathing. Okay. I feel myself breathing in and out, in and out. And then all of a sudden, what happens is you really quiet the mind and all these inner thoughts come to the surface. It's really easy to do. So just lay down in bed and really focus on your breathing. And then you focus on your exhaling and inhaling. And when you do that, you really quiet the mind and all these internal thoughts come to the surface. And
Right.
another way to do it is change your surroundings. Go for a walk. Do something
Yeah.
different. You know what I mean? I love doing that. I mean, I have a dog and, I love taking him for a walk. It's good for him and it's good for me at the same time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's one of my favorite ways of getting into that mindful state. And you also get to usually immerse yourself in some form of nature if you're lucky enough to live near something like that. And that's a very healing environment that helps to facilitate mindfulness.
Absolutely. Well, for me, it's the beach. I mean,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I would love to eventually own something on the beach. Because for me, I just love to take a walk on the beach and just sit there and listen to the ocean. I've always
Yeah.
been like that. The beach is one of my happy places. You might say.
Yeah, absolutely. And Josie, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back to talk more with Josie
Okay.
Varga here on Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Welcome back to Reflections, the Wisdom of Edgar Cayce. We're going to get right back into our interview with Josie Varga. And Josie, I'm curious, in your opinion, what is the most crucial step in training your mind to think positively, as you seem to be incredibly good at this?
The most crucial step actually is personal acceptance. If you can't accept who you are, if you truly can't accept who you are, you will never be satisfied with what you have. You will always be
Right.
looking for more, and you will always come up short because no matter what you have, it will never be enough. It would never be enough. In my case, looking back at my life, when I was a little girl, and when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't like what I saw. Okay, I didn't like what I saw. Not only did I have leg braces on my legs, but I had really kinky curly hair. Okay, really kinky curly hair, and over by all that. So when I looked in the mirror, I didn't like the person that I saw looking back at me, and it took me a long time to realize that if I didn't accept me, no one else will. You know, like
Right.
I used to focus so much on those leg braces, right? That's all I saw. And guess what? Because that's what I saw, that's what everybody else saw. So when I took that focus off of that and I truly accepted me for who I was, everything changed because I realized that the outside circumstances don't define me. The outside circumstances don't define me, they don't define you. You are the only person who can define me, who can define you. So once I realized that, I mean, I think my life really changed. I changed my way of thinking. When people, you asked me before, when people say, how did I get from there to here? I didn't go anywhere, Brent. The only thing that changed was my way of thinking. And that's why training your mind to think positive is so important. So important.
Right. Absolutely. And kind of a follow up to that question, there's a bit of a paradox involved with this, and I think some people use it, maybe I would say to their advantage, but it seems to be often to their disadvantage. That does this idea of personal acceptance and how important that is for thinking positive, does that mean that you can accept your behavior and you don't have to work on improving yourself? It just everything is as it is, and you just have to learn to accept it?
Absolutely not. Just the opposite. Personal acceptance means knowing yourself for who you truly are and loving yourself for who you truly are, taking a good, hard look in the mirror. Okay? Um, Knowing yourself for who you truly are, Brent, gives you the power of change. And sometimes change is absolutely necessary.
And Josie, what have you found in your experience, both in your personal life and with the others that you work with, has been kind of the biggest block towards accepting yourself and kind of finding happiness?
Well, like I said before, I think it's a matter of personal acceptance. Because if you don't accept yourself for who you are, you're always going to be placing stipulations on yourself. You're always going to be saying, "Well, I'll be happy when." You have to be happy with the here and now, and people are
Right.
not. And the other thing is, people are always looking for someone else to make them happy or something to make them happy. I'll be happy when he asks me to marry him, or I'll be happy when I'm making six figures at my job. And like I said before, then when you finally get there, so you finally get married and you end up in an unhappy marriage or whatever the case may be, or you finally make six figures and you're still not happy. So now what? So now what do you do? So people
Right.
have to understand that our happiness is not dependent on those outside circumstances. Our happiness is within us. It's not dependent on outside circumstances or how much we own or what we have or anything like that. The material things don't matter. And once we accept ourselves for who we are, we begin to realize that. Okay. And when we don't, when we're dependent on everything on the outside, we widen the gap between ourselves and happiness.
And Josie, I understand that you are quite active on social media. Aside from the books and the lectures that you do, you have a couple of Facebook pages that are group pages for getting kind of creating an active forum where you can have people bounce their ideas and share their stories. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, I have one group based on my book Visits from Heaven. I have Visits from Heaven 1, which is an open group, and Visits from Heaven 2, which is a closed group. Right now, I think we have close to 27,000 members. So, I never dreamed that the group would get so big. It's been wonderful, but that's just a testament to how much people need something like that. I
Right.
started the group because I wanted to bring comfort to the bereaved, and I wanted people to understand that love never dies. And that's part of the reason I wrote Visits from Heaven. So it's wonderful to see the group grow so much and to see so many people share their experiences. I mean, the letters that I have gotten from all over the world have been absolutely wonderful. I can't say enough. I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, it's about helping other people, and it's wonderful to see so many people being helped. Um, like people saying, thank you. I know that I'm not alone, and I know that I will see my loved one again. And I think that the group provides a forum for people to share their experiences without fear of being ridiculed. And
Right.
it's amazing how many times people, come on and say, "Oh my God, that happened to me," because I,
Hmm.
I put up a list of all the different types of after-death communication, or what I call visits from heaven. And people read the list and then they realize that what happened to them was actually a sign from their loved one. So it's been really wonderful. It's a wonderful group, and I'm really really proud of it. And I also have another group on Facebook called Positive Thoughts. And what we do is we just post a positive thought every single day. In my book, Make Up Your Mind to Be Happy, I talk about the importance of having a positive thoughts journal, and that's why I started that group. Um, and I also have another group on Facebook called the Divine Visits Prayer Group. And what we do is people post prayer requests, and we pray for people all over the world. And that's been wonderful too. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful, loving people out there. So I'm proud to be part of
Yeah.
it.
That's wonderful. Good for you for doing that because I think social media is a resource that really needs to be tapped, and it sounds like you're doing that. It brings people together in kind of a non-biased, non-judgmental environment, which I think previous to how you know previous to us having um, social media, we didn't have that outlet where we could connect with people from all across the globe, and it's such a beautiful thing that needs to be taken advantage of.
It is. It is. I mean, for me, it's been a challenge, to tell you the truth, because I'm the kind of person that wants to help the world,
Yeah.
and I can't. I can't because I'm only one person. I got a email, I think it was last week or the week before, and the woman told me that she lost her best friend, and she said, "Josie, please help me." And when I read emails like that, I really take it to heart, and I really want to help everyone. So sometimes I can be a little hard because, like, I get over 100 emails a day, and
Wow.
yeah, and several private messages on Facebook. So it's very overwhelming. But then again, I think there's a reason I do what I do, and I feel very privileged. I really do. That people
Yeah.
trust me enough to come to me. I'm very grateful. I really am. So I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about all those emails and private messages.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that you're really striving to be of service, which as one does that, it is sometimes a struggle to fully dedicate yourself to being of service because we're only one person and we only have so much energy and time. So you're
Uh,
to be very commended for what you're doing. Thank you.
oh, well, thank you. I mean, one of the things that I tell people is that they should write a personal mission statement, okay?
Mm,
Because it really helps you keep things in perspective and know who you truly are and know who you really, know what you really want out of life. And the easy way to do that is to sit down and write down like 10 things that describe you, okay?
hmm
10 things that describe you. And then if you think about this, it can be morbid, but I don't mean it in that way. If you're on your deathbed, right, today, tomorrow, and you are looking back at your life, what do you want to say to yourself? Okay?
right.
Or when someone's thinking about you, what do you want them to be able to say about you? Now, I did this exercise, and what I ended up with was I wanted to be able to help others. I realized that the reason behind my books and the reason I became a motivational speaker is because I want to be able to help other people. Okay? So when I'm looking back at my life, I want to be able to say that I made a difference.
Yeah.
I made a difference. So that's why it's important. People talk about corporate statements all the time or business plans, but they don't think about doing a personal mission statement. So I would
Right.
encourage everybody out there to do that.
That's wonderful. That's just like Casey says. It's important to work with ideals, to have an ideal for your life, to work with that, and that'll help give you a frame of reference, something to always fall back on and reference everything to. Is am I sticking with my ideals? Am I sticking with my mission statement? Is this in line with that? Which is a great thing to have.
Yeah, and you have to pay attention to your inner voice.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about before about personal acceptance being, knowing who you truly are. I mean, y- knowing who you truly are, knowing what's really important. Like sometimes I get so frustrated because I'm not making a lot of money. But then I realize, well, it really isn't about the money. Okay, I don't really care about the money because you can't put a price tag on, let's say, the woman who contacted me who lost her best friend. The fact that she reached out to me, you know, that
Yeah.
that says a lot. It means the world to me that I'm able to make a difference in somebody else's life. So it's not about the money or the prestige or whatever. It's so much more than that.
Right. Absolutely. And Josie, we're going to take another quick commercial break, but we'll be right back with more from
Okay.
Josie Varga here on Reflections, the wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Welcome back to Reflections, the wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Joining us today on the show is Josie Varga. We'll get right back into our interview. Josie, you raised a wonderful point when you said that love never dies earlier. And I love this because in the Casey material, he said this idea of love that you have, it goes well beyond the grave. And can you explain that a little better for those who might not fully grasp that concept?
Sure. When you look at me and you, Brent, we look solid, right? Okay. But if you break the body down, we're actually molecules. We're actually energy. And what do you know about energy? Energy can be neither created or destroyed. Okay. So when we die, we literally change form. We are energy beings, and the energy continues on. And the one thing that we take with us when we die is love. Love is so strong and so powerful. We take all those feelings, all those memories with us. And, when people say, well, how do you know that? Well, say say my story, Rich, for example, that came to me, the one who died on, my husband's friend who died on 9/11. Why would he reach out to me, a third party who's never met him? Why would he reach out to me to tell his wife that Boston is okay if he didn't still love her, if the love still wasn't there? Okay? So, I mean, there's proof all over the place that love
Hmm.
never dies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to get into your e group that you will be doing in March. You'll be discussing forgiveness during week 3 of this online e group. And why talk about the need to forgive during a course about positive thinking? I find that very fascinating.
Well, because if you don't forgive, you hold yourself prisoner. Okay, if that makes
Right,
sense. People think, Brent, that when we don't forgive, when we're angry, when we're resentful or whatever, we're getting back at the wrongdoer, but we're not. The person we're really helping, I mean, the person we're really hurting is ourselves. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, you know? You know what Gandhi once said, one of my favorite quotes? He said, an eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind.
I love that.
Okay? An eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind. So we need to forgive. And by the way, forgiving doesn't mean that you are condoning the act or that you're saying that it's okay. I guarantee you that if my husband cheated on me, or let's say my best friend cheated with my husband, or whatever the case would be, would I forget about it? Would I be okay with it? No, no. But I would need to forgive and move on. I By not forgiving, we are letting the act consume us. Okay?
Right.
By forgiving, we are setting ourselves free. Forgiveness helps the forgiver more than the wrongdoer. People don't realize that. So
Right.
it's very important that we don't hold that anger in, and that's what happens when we don't forgive.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exactly what we talked about earlier with the power of thoughts. When you forgive
Right.
somebody, you change the way you think about the situation. It doesn't change the situation that in the saying that it didn't happen or you're forgetting that it happened. It just changes the way you think about it. So every time it comes up, you're not, creating this really angry, nasty environment inside yourself.
Absolutely. You know, people say, well, first you have to have success and then you have happiness, right? But it's
Right.
actually the other way around. First you have happiness, then you have success. Happy positive thoughts bring positive things. So that's why positive thinking is so important. It has to start with the way you think. It's not dependent
Absolutely.
on what happens to you. It's all a matter of how you think.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people struggle with this idea that we've been discussing of happiness and thinking positive, and we talk about it a little lightly as if it is something that is very simple. And of course, as we all know, it goes very deep and it takes a lot of time to work with it. But what is the
Yeah.
number one reason why people fail in this endeavor?
Well, people fail because they never take the first step, you know?
Right,
Um,
right,
people think that, all right, people fail because they don't have the money or they don't have the resources, but it's not about that. It's not about the money. It's not about not having the resources. People fail because they are afraid or what have you. They don't ever take the first step. So why don't they take the first step? They're not thinking positively. They don't think that they can do it or whatever. Okay, so that's why it starts with the way you think. You have to change the way you think.
yeah, absolutely. And we talked a little bit about your e group previously. We
Hmm.
talked about the in week 3 how you'll be talking about forgiveness and discussing forgiveness. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the whole e group will entail?
Um, well, it's it's divided into 4 weeks, and we're going to be talking about the title is Rediscovering Happiness, Training Your Mind to Think Positive. Um, we're going to be talking about acceptance, forgiveness, action, learning how to take everything that they've learned and put it into action. Because
Mhm.
action without knowledge without action is worthless. Doing nothing about it, I don't know, doing nothing about it, forget it. You don't get anything out of it. Um, I'm just really excited about it. We're going to be talking about how to actually train your mind to think positive, why it's so important, why personal acceptance is so important. We're going to be talking about how the brain works and how we create these thoughts. So it'll be exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll give our listeners all the information they need to register for that online e-group and participate in that with you. You also have a blog on your website. What has the process of blogging been like for you, and how has the response been?
Uh, the response has been amazing. It's hard to come up with different topics every month, but I pretty much go with what's going on around me. Like
Right.
just yesterday, I wrote one about what does Christmas mean to you, and I just let my feelings out. I'm a very emotional writer. You know, I write as if I'm talking to the person, and a lot of people say that to me. They love to go on and read my blogs, so it's been wonderful. I wish I could do it more often. You know, I would write a blog every week if I could. But right now, I try to do it twice a month, but right now I've been pretty much doing it once a month. So,
Wonderful. And you said you wrote a blog post about what Christmas means to you, and this is appropriate for the time since we are immersed in the holiday season. What exactly does Christmas mean to you, and how does the idea of mindfulness and being aware of your thoughts and creating a positive, happy attitude, how does that all play into the idea of what Christmas means?
when I was a little kid, I'll tell you what, I talked a little bit about in the blog. When I was a little kid, I looked forward to spending Christmas with my family. I come from a large Italian family, okay? And we lived in a two-family house and we had a big finished basement. So because I had so many cousins, they would frequently come to my house for Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. So to me, what I miss most was those times that I spent with my cousins, the memories, Um, that's what it means to me. When you are young, when you're a little kid, right, but are
Hmm.
you thinking, oh, in 10 years, I'm not going to be able to enjoy this anymore? No, you're a little kid. You're not thinking about the future. You're living in the moment, okay? But now that I'm in the future, I realize how precious those times really were. Um, if I could go back, I would do things so differently. I talk about when I was a little girl, my father used to dress up as Santa Claus, okay? So, and I would one look into Santa's eyes, and I knew it was my father, you know. But I never said, "Hey, Dad," I know it's you. I didn't say a word. But if I could go back in time, I would spend a little bit more time on my father's lap. I would hug a little more, you know? I would cherish those times a little more. Now that I'm older, I realize how precious that really was. Christmas is not about the presents under the tree. Christmas is more about those kisses under the mistletoe, if you will. It's about the love that you share. It's about spending time with your family and friends. Because the reason I wrote the blog, Brent, is I was really thinking about all my friends and family that have passed on, and I really miss them. You know, over the years, my family has gotten smaller. So, God, I wish I could go back and one more time say I love you, and one more time give them a hug. And we all know that life doesn't end and love never dies. But I was missing them in the flesh. So Christmas to me is about spending time with your family and friends, appreciating what you have. Christmas is about love. That's what it's all about. It's not about those presents and, the material things. So,
Right.
and one of the things that I say to people, A lot of people are hurting during the holidays. Okay, look at me. Yesterday I was missing my loved ones. So what I say is unwrap a memory. Okay, your loved ones are still with you. So when you're missing your loved ones this holiday season, unwrap a memory. Reach within your heart and unwrap a memory.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you. And I think to add to that, I would
I
just
feel like
say, and
I,
you,
I feel like I want to cry, but yeah.
yeah, I know. That's what I say. I was just kind of immersed in that, just in enjoying it. And it's a great reminder for myself and hopefully for all of our listeners that that's really what it is all about. And kind of the gist of it is to be in the now as you get to enjoy the holiday season with your loved ones. Always try to be mindful and present so that you fully get to indulge in the presence of those loved ones and the memories that you're making rather than anything so material and exchanging gifts and stuff. Just enjoy the just being with them and feeling their love. I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of us don't realize that until it's too late. You
Right.
know, um, like I said, I would do so much differently. Like my grandmother passed away in February of 2010, and I remember when I was a little girl, she would, help me write my letters to Santa, and she would come over on Christmas Eve and hang my stocking with me. And even though I appreciated it then, like I said, I didn't realize how precious that really was. Um, and I love her so much, and I wish I could tell her I love her now. I can, and I know she can still hear me. But if I realized how precious those times were then, maybe I would have told her I loved her 1,000 more times. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
this Christmas, show your loved ones that you love them. Say it, show it, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I kind of to end here, I want to talk about your personal mission statement because as we move through Christmas, of course we have New Year's next, and New Year's resolution is such a thing that's ingrained in our culture. And I
Uh-huh.
think a wonderful New Year's resolution is to, as Casey said, work with your ideals, but you added that with a mission statement, which is a full overarching idea of where you want your life to go and what direction you want to head in, and where you always want to reference where your life is at. So, what is
hmm
your personal mission statement, and how would you encourage others in the New Year's to really develop their mission statement for the year?
My my personal mission statement, as I said before, when I sat down and I actually wrote 10 things that describe me, and I sat down and I said, okay, if I was on my deathbed tomorrow and I look back at my life, what do I want to be able to say about my life? And I want to be able to say that I made a difference, that I actually helped someone else. So my mission statement is to continue to help others. Um, and that's why I do what I do. That's why I wrote my books. That's why I'm a motivational speaker. To me, you can't put a price tag on that. You know, helping others is what it's all about. Love is what it's all about. That's why we're here. And Casey used to talk about that all the time. And love is our true essence. You know,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and he fully dedicated himself to being of service, and it was something that he discovered early in his life that he wanted to be of service not only to everybody but especially to children, which I think is incredibly important as well because as everyone says, as cliche as it sounds, they are the future and they need guidance. They need these resources with people who like yourself who are telling them that they need to, accepting yourself is what it's all about and loving yourself is what it's all about.
well, while Casey used to say, it you find yourself when you're of service to others.
Yeah.
Okay? And that is so true for me. I mean, like I said, I never even thought about going to ARE to publish my book, but I'm so happy that I did. And because I have truly found myself, you know, it is in helping other people, in writing my books, in speaking, and doing all those things that I truly realized who I really am. I know that I have a purpose in this life. We all do. And I truly believe that I am living my purpose. I am doing what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful. Well, Josie, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for sharing your message, your mission statement, and for always being of service. No matter how difficult it gets for us at times, you have that as your ideal, and I'm very thankful for it. And you have thousands of people out there who are so thankful for your books and your blog and your Facebook page.
Oh,
So it was an honor to
I,
have you on the show.
I'm blushing over here. No.
Well, you're doing great
No.
work. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor.
Hey, listen, thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm very honored to do what I do, and I thank everybody out there for their continued support. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Don't forget to pick up Josie's best selling books. Her latest, entitled Divine Visits, highlights true angelic and divine encounters from around the world, including her own. And she has also written Visits to Heaven, Visits from Heaven, Make Up Your Mind to Be Happy, and Footprints in the Sand, A Disabled Woman's Inspiring Journey to Happiness. You can check out her website at josievarga.com or her blog at josievarga.wordpress.com. And don't forget, she is mentoring the online e-group through the ARE, and this is entitled Rediscovering Happiness, Train Your Mind to Think Positive. And this e-group runs from March 25th to April 21st of 2015. You can register for this and other e-groups offered by the ARE at edgarcayce.org/egroups. On behalf of everyone here at the Association for Research and Enlightenment and moretalk.tv, I'm your host, Brenton Bickerstaff, reminding you to always strive to maintain an attitude of gratitude. Oftentimes, the holiday season can become so commercialized in America, but try to remember the true meaning and purpose of the holidays, and that is to spend time immersed in the love and acceptance of all that is in our beautiful lives. Hope everyone has a wonderful week, and thank you so much for tuning in to Reflections, the wisdom of Edgar Cayce. Now it's time for the thought for the day here on Reflections. And joining us as always is Dr. Bill Austin. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today on Reflections for the thought for the day.
Thank you, Brent. Always a pleasure to be here. I really enjoy this.
Absolutely. Good to have you on. And if you can go ahead and read the thought for the day today.
All right. This thought comes from reading 281-9. Be sincere in self, and in that sought, more and more will the aid come, as there is added to your own self, those of love and patience, charity, and long-suffering. Be sincere in self. You know, I think that is such a statement that needs a lot of reflection. Recently I read from Kevin Tedeschi's and Henry Reed's new book on the chapter on ideals, and how much emphasis the Cayce readings put on setting a personal idea to give you a direction, but also to help you understand where you're really going, and can you be true to that ideal. And this thought for the day really reminds me of that. And as you're working towards your ideal, it isn't about getting stuff, material things coming your way. It's more the attributes, or the divine attributes, you know, as he calls it, love, patience, charity, the things that really enrich us and give us some internal joy.
Right.
I think this has
absolutely. I love that. Yeah. I love that you brought up ideals, because I think that's one of the most important things that's come out of the Cayce work. And it is, for me, ideals has always been a reference point. It's something that I always use as my measuring stick about where with the beginning of this excerpt from the reading, this thought says, be sincere in self. And in order to determine whether I'm truly being sincere in myself, I always have to make a mental check of where do I stand in reference to my ideals. And
Mm.
the other part of this excerpt says, more and more will the aid come. And I think that is truly where the faith comes into place, knowing that if you do work strongly with your ideals and you use that as your reference point and you carry that into all of your interaction, you'll find that the aid from all different directions, whether it's a new relationship or a new opportunity that manifests, the signs will be shown to you, and it's kind of the universe or God showing you that you are actually sticking with your ideals, which is a way of kind of being rewarded by sticking strong to those ideals and truly putting them into practice, which is so important in the Casey material.
Yeah, I really feel the same way. That ideal is, here's what I really want in this
Yeah,
aspect of my life. And
absolutely. I think you made a great point. And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, and it just makes me feel like, here's what I really want, and I don't know how to get there. It's almost a prayer
Yeah,
of asking for help. You know, here's what I
absolutely.
want. If I knew how to get there, I'd be there. But I don't know how to get there. Please help me.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
help comes.
absolutely. It certainly does. Certainly does. Well, Bill, thank you so much for sharing with me and the thought for the day today. It's always a pleasure having you on Reflections.
Oh, it's been great, Brent, as always. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Absolutely. I'll see you next week.
Look forward to it.